So my guest this week is Karuna DiLibero. Hello and welcome. She's joining us from Mexico, which is now her new home. So welcome, Karuna.
Hello, and thank you, Danya. So
I'm
nice to be here.
so excited to hear all about your exciting travels and your business. And we have a little bit of a history, you and I. We went to an Ayurvedic school together to get our wellness counselor certifications. And looking at your business and everything you're doing down there, you've really expanded from your yoga and your essential oils to the whole, basically holistic healthcare down there. So, um, why don't we kind of start wherever you want to start? Tell us a little bit about you, your life, and how you have ended up sitting outside of your own camper in the middle of Mexico.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I didn't grow up as a traveler or a camper or anything like that, or even in a family that was into natural medicine or yoga. They were very traditional Roman Catholic East Coasters from the United States. And I think my journey started way back in my childhood, really, where I just felt like I didn't feel like anyone understood me as a child. I was going through family trauma, and no one knew how to relate to me or speak with me or find any or help me find any solution or emotional outlets for the trauma that I was experiencing. So I grew up really an angry, depressed child, which when I tell that to people, they look at me and they just laugh because I have done a complete 180, and I do credit yoga for that and natural wellness. So because I felt like I was suffering through my childhood, early adulthood, I would, once I moved out of my family house, I started seeking, and I just started seeking different solutions. And I grew up Catholic, and that didn't resonate with me. So I started studying different philosophies and religions, and I was seeking natural remedies to help myself feel better. And nothing that I was doing was really helping. But it was years later when my friends had an intervention for me, and they said that because I had become so depressed that I either had to get myself on antidepressants and see a therapist, or they wanted me to find a new place to live. So, you know, it was just years of accumulated, unattended depression that really led me to the path of yoga, which is something that I'm so grateful for, really, because I don't know if I would have come to it in any other way. But I feel like it's a very karmic thing for me. So who knows? But really, I came to yoga for because of the stress reducing qualities, and because it relaxes your nervous system, and for all these things that we hear, all the benefits of yoga. And so that's what really got me into the practice. And so I've always kind of been out of the box. I moved out of my family home when I was in my second year of college. I quit college and moved to Oregon, and just experienced a whole different level of freedom in my life. And that was really amazing. And so then I really got into nature and the outdoors and camping in the mountains, and hiking, and and really developed a love for plants in that way. And it was in when I lived in Oregon that I opened up a yoga studio in the late 90s. And 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 then I got into Ayurveda probably 15 years later. And that was when I was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I was working at a yoga studio. And there, excuse me, the owner there was going to Ayurveda school, and then she had a yoga studio, and she also had a cafe and a spa. And I was just introduced to so many different Ayurvedic remedies and treatments, and I just fell in love with it. So that is basically my roundabout short version of how I came to yoga and Ayurveda.
We have been living parallel lives. I don't know if we talked about this or not. School was so intense that even if we did, I probably had forgotten all of it. But um, aside from the Oregon thing, you can replace that with state of Washington, and we pretty much have followed that same path. Oh my goodness, I had
Wow.
no idea. So tell me real quick, what were the years that you were in Santa Fe? Because I will just
Um,
laugh out
okay.
loud if we were there at the same time and didn't know it.
I got to Santa Fe in the winter, like right before Christmas, the winter of 2003. So I really consider getting there 2004, the beginning of the year, January. And I was there until 2012.
Okay. Um, I had just left when you got there. I was there
Oh.
from 97 to 2001 or something like that. So, yeah, more of those dishy stories for another time.
Yes, I know. Well, our paths didn't cross for for no reason.
And so, yeah, do you find now that, I mean, obviously from just seeing your lovely face, and hearing you and watching you over the years, you've you've found your you found your calling, I think. You
I
don't have
Yeah.
any searching really to do when it comes to that.
No, absolutely not. I feel so blessed because I was never one of those children who grew up knowing what they wanted to do. I remember these kids that I went to school with in elementary school, and they're like, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And I never knew. Even in college, I didn't know. And it wasn't until I left college, moved to Oregon, and was introduced to like I said, a whole different reality. It's like the country is yin and yang, from one coast to the other. So
Mhm.
that's where I have some friends there who introduced me to yoga by inviting me to a yoga class. And I have to honestly say, I did not like it at all. It was a Kundalini yoga class.
Uh-huh.
And I had so much anger stuffed down in my body that I didn't even realize that when I came out of that Kundalini class and she asked me how I felt, I said I felt so angry that I felt like I wanted to punch someone in the face. Not that I ever would, and I never have in my life, but it's just that feeling where you just feel so angry. And it took me a while to go back. Actually, I didn't go back right away because it was so intense for me and I really didn't understand what was going on, until I started
Yeah.
reading about it. And then because I like to do a lot of research on things, so the more I started reading about it, I realized what was going on with myself. And then I'm like, okay, let's go back and give this another try and move through my shadow side, and try to reestablish some sense of equanimity in my nervous system, and recalibrate different connections in my mind, and just reset. So I kind of dedicated myself to it after that,
Well, I
although
there
not Kundalini.
right. Well, Kundalini yoga was my first introduction to yoga as well when I was in Santa Fe.
Uh-huh.
So I'm curious, because you have the full range of exposure to um, yoga and its practices and its ability to lift us out of the spaces that we find ourselves in, sometimes right literally in the middle of a class. And I know for a lot of my listeners, it's something that they feel they have to be a certain way. They have to already have things figured out, to actually go take it, right? So could you talk a little bit about what you would tell someone who maybe was in your situation now what you were in years ago, like what would be the most optimal type of yoga for them to maybe start practicing or researching, or if they have this trauma or this depression or anything in their life that they need a little more help with, that yoga can help them with. So where would you steer somebody?
That's, I feel like that's such a hard question to answer, honestly, because my initial thought is like, just get yourself to a yoga class. Any yoga class. I mean, if you're depressed and you can get yourself out of bed, out of your house, into your car, or to a yoga studio, you've won the game for the day,
Agreed.
So any class I would recommend, as long as it's supportive to you, and that's where Ayurveda comes in, along, because everyone is so different that we all have different needs, and it depends at what stage in our life we're approaching yoga practice as well. So, for instance, when I first started yoga, I was, I think, 24. So here I am as a young woman with so much anger. I am I'm highly energetic. I've got like lots of energy, but I need to recalibrate my system. And I could not meditate to save my life, because a lot of times when you are depressed, the last thing you want to do is sit in silence with your own thoughts. So when I got into yoga, like I said, I started with that Kundalini class, but I didn't stick with Kundalini because for me, that was too much of an intense experience. Like for me, it just brought up too much too fast.
Yeah.
So I had to find another way, that worked for me, because that at that stage of my life, I felt resistance to, and I didn't enjoy going to the class because I wanted to feel good, and it brought up so much emotion in me that it didn't make me feel good. I would
Mm-hmm.
leave the class angry or crying. Because I went back to a few classes after that. So what I did was, at that time, it was in the, let me think about this. Let's go way back. I think it was in the early to mid 90s, right? When I'm in my early 20s. And so that's when step aerobics was really hip and key. So I worked at a gym, and I had some girlfriends that I went to step aerobics too, because I had to get my body moving in some way. And this is before I found a yoga class. And so I worked at this gym, and they wanted me to actually teach aerobics. And I just laughed because I was like, are you actually watching me in the back of the room? I'm like four steps behind. My face is tomato red. I'm dripping sweat, and I can barely talk. There's no way. And I have stage fright. So, there's no way I was going to do that. But there was this yoga teacher that worked at the gym, and she was teaching several classes a week. And at the time, was just learning yoga from a book myself, and teaching myself, and doing the poses myself. And, you know, I thought it would be a good idea to actually go to a yoga class with a teacher to see if I'm doing it correctly. So I ended up going to her classes religiously for a year. Every class she taught, I was there. And then she asked me at one point if I wanted to do a 6-month yoga teacher training with her. And I looked her right in the eyes and almost laughed, because at that time, I'm young, I'm in my 20s. I mean, I used to party when I was young. I used to do, lots of things, let's just say, and drink a lot of alcohol. And I looked at her and I was like, there's no way I want to teach yoga. I'm doing this for me. And so she just rephrased it, and she said, well, why don't you do a 6-month yoga immersion, and learn for yourself? And I was like, that I'll do. So I studied with her one-on-one for 6 months. And, she introduced me to all the different traditions and forms of yoga. And I had no idea. I mean, I'm coming in as someone from the East Coast, from a Roman Catholic Italian family. And, my grandma's still speaking Italian. So I have no idea about India and what's going on in that whole philosophy of life over there. And so when she introduced me to all these different traditions, each week we would do a practice from a different tradition. Like we'd do a Shivananda yoga practice, an Ashtanga yoga practice, a Jivamukti practice, or, Kundalini, or, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so what at the time in my life, what really resonated with me was Ashtanga yoga. And why? Because it was number one, super physical and dynamic, and you're moving one breath per movement. There's a series that you learn that you don't have to think about. So once you learn that, you're good to go. And because it is such a physically demanding practice for me at the time, it gave me no time to linger in my mind and be like, poor me, wow, 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 for all my things that I was suffering from. So for me, that really worked for me at the time. And I was super dedicated to Ashtanga for, I would say, daily for 12 years. Went to India. I had the blessing to study with Patabi Joyce, the guru of Ashtanga yoga in India, in his hometown. And have that whole experience and live in India. But as I age, as I started to get older, and like I said, it's a series that you're doing all the time. So if you're doing these repeat exercises every single day, pretty much for 12 years, you can definitely create some wear and tear in your body. And because you're not doing, I wasn't someone who's really physically athletic and who's doing lots of other forms of exercise besides like living outdoors and going, just doing all the outdoors activities like hiking, snowboarding, kayaking, things like that. But I'm not like someone who's going to go out, although I did run for a while, but that started to bother my knees. But I'm not someone who's going to go out and like lift weights or go to the gym. It wasn't my jam at that time. I was very, I was restless at that
Mm-hmm.
time. And so that practice really served me. But as I grew older, I started to develop some shoulder issues in my right shoulder. And I think a lot of it had to do with being lazy with my alignment and
Mm-hmm.
having my shoulder drop forward with all those chaturangas and vinyasas. So I had closed my yoga studio in Oregon, and I had moved from Oregon down to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And that's where I was introduced to Anusara yoga. And Anusara yoga, I feel, is the feminine version of a yoga practice to Ashtanga's young
Mm-hmm.
energy, because Ashtanga is so young. And if you read about the history of Ashtanga, it was created for prepubescent boys to burn off their testosterone. And
Yes.
here I am now in my 30s, and I don't need that. So Anusara is an Iyengar based form of yoga that's really heart centered, and they always have themes to their classes, so it's very poetic. So it engages more of a pitta mind where you can kind of really think about it and really feel that sense of joy in your practice. Whereas I felt like with Ashtanga, for me personally, and this is just my opinion, I'm not dissing Ashtanga because I absolutely love the practice and still integrate parts of it into my own practice today. But for me, it started to become too militant feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And with Anusara, it was very free flowing, like I was saying, very feminine, goddess orientated. And that I felt was more that I needed. And they also focused on more of the alignment, like Iyengar yoga does, and energetic loops in the body. And then it just really got me into healing my shoulder and just experiencing a different form of yoga, because throughout the years, I've had some injuries as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, so I've had to work around those as well.
Yeah. Ah, that is a really beautiful explanation of both of those. And honestly, it's um, not It is. It's news to me. I didn't realize how different they really are. So thank you for that. Thank you for helping my listeners
Yeah.
understand that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I just feel like if you're going to start a yoga practice, consider your age, how much, what your energy levels are. Like, do you have an excess amount of energy that you need to burn off, or do you need something more restorative?
mm,
um and there are so many different practices to choose from, but I would say if you're just starting yoga, of course, start with a beginner class so you learn the basics and the philosophy, and you can really begin to start from the foundation and build up, and then just start yoga shopping around, like I did, and just start looking into different classes, studios, teachers, and feel what resonates for you, because when something feels good for you, then you're going to keep doing it. I mean, it doesn't feel like a chore. For me, I just couldn't wait to get to yoga class every day. And that transformed my life because, like I was saying, I was really into substance abuse and drinking a lot of alcohol. And you know, that is having a hangover is not conducive to your morning yoga practice. So I find that, in Ayurveda, we teach a lot of lifestyle skills and practices. And the idea is to supplement people's lifestyle. So we're not trying to take away anything. So for instance, I was supplementing my partying with my yoga practice. And so for me, at one point, my yoga practice started to outweigh the partying. And so I
mm,
started to give up that partying and give up the lifestyle, and giving up the friends and the drinking and doing drugs. And all of a sudden people are like, what's wrong with you? And you're kind of in no man's land. But then, you have this whole other community of healthy people that are dedicated to their yoga practice as well. And so, you know, I love that saying, we are the sum of the five closest people that we surround ourselves with. So, if we surround ourselves with healthy people who are active and, working on themselves and trying to do their best, then I feel that I'm encouraged to do that too. So I just felt like for me, it was a gradual but easy transition. It wasn't like something that happened overnight. So it's not an overnight fix for someone who has depression. Like I would say, it took me a good couple years to have develop a daily practice and really drop in for it to really, for me to feel like my life just took a 180-degree turn.
yeah.
I mean, I don't really, I'm trying to think of how long it actually took, but that doesn't matter because, again, I
Yeah.
don't want to put a timeline on it because everyone else is on their own timeline as well. It doesn't matter how long it takes. You could
Yes.
have a relapse and then drop out of that and go back to old ways. And then all of a sudden you're like, you know what, this isn't working for me. And I miss my yoga practice and feeling good and waking up with a smile and actually opening my curtains and being happy that the sun's shining in the morning instead of like pulling the curtains over my bed and wanting to cry,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you
Oh,
know?
it's so nice to hear. Um, it's just so nice to meet you in this space again. Because yeah, if you ever go to write a book about your life, we should probably talk because we're probably writing the same exact book. Oh my
That's so
gosh.
funny. I've written one a long time ago, but
Mm-hmm.
never finished it or published it. So yeah, well, that'll be a different subject.
So a memoir of yours, that was actually one
I've
of the
had so
silly
many
questions I was going to
experiences.
ask you. What would be the title of your memoir? Do you know right now?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I have a name for it. It's called Don't Anyone Take It. Just kidding. It's called Namaste from the Inside.
Oh, oh my God. Oh, I felt that. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Hmm.
And the
Yeah.
inside doesn't necessarily mean what you think.
Right. Right. Oh, yay. So you're in Mexico. Tell me what
Oh,
it's like living your misadventurous, fabulous life.
Mexico, even though it's a bordering country to the United States, it's a totally different world, you know? It's here in Mexico, I feel free here in Mexico, actually. And so I'm really enjoying that freedom. And the reason why I bought my RV and decided to drive down in Mexico is because my goal was to find land and start my little homestead and build an Ayurvedic Panchakarma yoga retreat center and really just offer Ayurveda at a lower cost for people and make it more available for people as well.
And word on the street is you found some property.
It's true. I did. I found some property last year in Oaxaca. I bought a couple lots and yeah, I'm gonna go down there in November. So I'm gonna drive my RV because right now I'm up in Jalisco, Nayarit area. So on the west coast.
Okay.
And I'll be driving down to Oaxaca, and I bought land just south of Puerto Escondido, and it's an 8-minute drive from my land to the coast. And if anyone knows me well, they know that the beach is my happy place. So even though I cannot hear the ocean waves from my property, I'm so close to the beach, and I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, I'll bet you can smell it from there, though.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I'm just
Mm.
gonna have to I finally got my passport, finally.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Yeah.
come down.
So I'm
You'll
gonna have
definitely
to
have to
make,
come down.
oh, I'm coming down. I'm coming
Okay,
down.
good.
Yes.
Next year, I am coordinating. I've been researching different. Let me digress. I've been researching different ways to build down there in Oaxaca. You know, and because Oaxaca is a state that has not been open to international business in the past, so there's no like Home Depot or things like that. And you know, everything is local Mexican, which I really enjoy and like and appreciate and want to support. However, it's raw land and it doesn't have any electricity, water, you know, nothing. So I have been doing lots of research on looking at ecological ways to take care of this little portion of land that I've been blessed to steward in the
Hmm.
most ecological and loving way. And so, you know, my first idea was that I was going to do these container homes. And there's a lot of container homes down here in Mexico. And as I look at them, they're all powered by these, you know, wall unit AC to keep them temperature controlled because otherwise it's a steel box.
Right.
So I was like, you know, that's going to take a lot of solar power, a lot of batteries, and a lot of resources, really, a lot of money, you know, when you add all that up. So I was just looking for a better solution, and what I found is the super adobe. So I don't know if you know what that is, but they're earth bag homes, and they're you're using the own earth underneath you basically to build your home on your land. You just need very limited equipment. It's eco-friendly. It's disaster proof, fire proof, bug proof, and it's following traditional building ways, which I also have an affinity for
Hmm.
traditional and ancient wisdom. So for me, this like checks all the boxes. So I'm really
Yeah.
excited about that. And I found someone who teaches super adobe building workshops in
Of
English and
course you did.
Spanish. And we're in the talks right now about setting a date for next year, and we're going to teach people how to build super adobes. And they're in the shape. You can build them in any shape. You could do traditional house shape in a square rectangle, but they're more I think beautiful efficient, and the energy just flows so beautifully when they're in the dome shape, like honeycombs.
Yes.
So, and you can build them multi-levels, which is amazing. So yeah, I have this whole vision that is in my head, and I am just so excited to bring this vision to fruition and start planting food and herbs and medicine, and just start sharing with the people who are living around me, because there's different ways you can buy land here in Mexico, and I actually bought into a community, and it's a community, and it's called Community Indigenous Land. And a lot of people who know about Mexico property ask me if it's ejido, and it's similar to ejido land, but it's not. It's similar in the ways that people in the community get elected. I don't know how many years, maybe every 2 or 4, and they are the community leaders or elders, and they're the ones that kind of set the rules. So even though we are governed under Mexican federal law, Oaxaca has its own state law, and it's very traditional and very old school. So when I got the papers for my property, there's actually a thumbprint signature on my
Wow.
paper, and it's hand signed. So you know
I kind of love that
um
though.
yeah, it's amazing. And so, it's good in one way, and in other ways it's not, because it took, let's say I bought my land, I paid for it in August of 2022, and I actually did not get my papers until June of 2023. So, in that way, it's not so good, because, they all have to get together at the same time.
Right. Right. So
So,
you
but I love
really
it.
got to want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
really have to, but I have my temporary residency here, and I'm going to go for my full residency at some point. And this community, I asked if I had to pay taxes on the land, and I don't have to pay taxes, but because I'm in a community, once everyone's houses is built up, then in Mexico they have people who drive around in trucks with loudspeakers on their trucks and speak in Spanish, of course, because we're here in Mexico, and they'll be looking for donations for the community. So
Mm.
say it's December 12th, and it's the Virgin Guadalupe's birthday. Then they'll go around and be like, "Oh, would you like to make a donation for the community for such and such?" So you can either give food or money or a blender, or things like that. Or they'll say, like, okay, we're this such and such day, we're going to have a beach cleanup day, come down and join us. And that's like paying your taxes. So for me,
Wow.
it couldn't feel like more of a dream, because I feel like instead of paying into a system that that I don't always agree with the agenda, I am paying into my community and the upliftment of others.
Oh my God.
So
Oh my God. I am so in love with this already. Wow.
yes, I'm really excited. So, there's another guy down in Puerto Escondido is a super adobe builder. So I think we're gonna do it in stages. So my goal is to bring people together, because I'm a natural networker. And just my goal is to remind people that we can live in luxury. We don't have to give up our luxury to live amongst nature and naturally, without harming nature and abusing her, and like constantly polluting the environment around us. So that's one of my goals.
I love that goal. I love that goal so, so, so much. And you're right. I think that it's a weird stigma, and it might be just a United States mentality kind of thing. But I think that people do feel like they have to give up stuff to live off the land, to live off the grid. When I was living off grid, it was some of the best time I ever had. I did not have running water. I used rainwater catchment. I did not have a flushing toilet. I actually had a Home Depot bucket that said, "Let's do this," right?
I've
And
seen those.
I didn't care. I loved it. I loved it. We had solar power, and when the solar power ran out, we went to bed, and like, you know what I mean? Like, so, but I never felt like I was lacking anything. And I was really, being the steward of this property. So I totally feel that. And I applaud you for taking that to heart and to really living your truth. I love watching my sisters live their truth. Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Another state that's just like phase one. And then phase two, once I'm up and running and can actually receive clients and people, I think that there's a real need for people, um, for a place for people to live. Um,
Hello.
my my cat bunnies popping through
Beautiful
the screen here.
cat. Yep.
I think there's a missing link in the addiction and recovery um, program, and I
Yeah.
think that when people actually detox from whatever it is that they are addicted to, I think the problem is with such a high relapse rate. I think that 80% of people relapse, more, at least once, if not several times, before they really give up their addiction. And I think that's because they're just sent back home, back into their old ways, with their
Yes.
old friends. And like I said,
Yes.
we need to teach people new ways. So I love to teach people Ayurveda, which is basically teaching people new lifestyle skills that are applied directly to them. And so I would like to have a program where I can offer people to come and live after their detox program
Mm.
and learn how to either build, super adobes or whatever project is going on the property at that time. But, more importantly, how to tend a garden, how to grow food, and how to harvest that food and actually transform all that raw produce into a beautiful meal. And I think a lot of people do not know how to do that. Or, I think a lot of the traditional ways have been lost, like canning and, drying or preserving herbs, like, food preservation, basically. And also making herbal medicines and using plant medicines. So, and I think when people are busy and they're actually doing physical work and they have their mind occupied all day because, living off grid, there's always something to do. And even though nowadays there are more and more systems in place that are making it much more easy for us, like I saw this solar system that actually generates drinking water from the air, so I'm looking into that as well. But yeah, I want to have a program that's like the missing link and, kind of like a 12-step yoga and Ayurveda and aromatherapy addiction recovery plan.
Yes.
And at that
Yes.
same time, that they're doing all of this work and living in this lifestyle, like, teaching them in the morning, okay, that we're going to do our yoga practice and, chant our mantras and do our pranayama and say our prayers and do our dinacharya practices. And then, also give people specific treatments that they'll need to help them relax their nervous system, because as we know, there's so much trauma behind addiction. So so we're really going to go to the root cause. And I think that really integrating that spiritual aspect into people's life is also the missing link. So I just want to be that space that just kind of brings it all together, because I feel like that's what saved my life.
Yes. Yes. Again, 15 years sober myself. So
Congratulations.
yeah.
It's amazing.
And when
Super
I
amazing.
did, I had to, just like you, the people that were in my circle, um,
Hmm.
well, what's wrong with you now? Like, it just,
Exactly.
everything
Yeah.
stopped. And I
I got a lot of
realized
that.
I was, I didn't fit. I didn't fit anymore. thank God. And then
Yeah.
I moved home and hung out with my parents. I got to spend, the last 6 years of my mother's time on this planet with her that I wouldn't have had. And
Hmm.
I got to experience marriage and the building and business and divorce and all those things. But I cannot applaud this enough because I think you're absolutely 1000% right that we put so much pressure on these systems that we have in place, especially here in the United States, of the recovery. And then we say, congratulations, you're done. And then that's kind of it. There's
Yeah, it's
the
like
AA,
throwing
there's
someone out from a sinking
moving.
ship and a
Yes,
life preserver and leaving them out in the middle of the ocean.
right,
Really,
right.
that's what it
And
feels like.
it does feel like that. Thankfully, I don't know how I had the strength where it came from, but um thankfully I have never had a relapse. I've never even been interested in the relapse because of the way that it all unfolded at the very end for me. And I just know that I literally live in the midst of those specific demographics. Not to get very graphic, but just last year, a person who lives literally right next door to me, which is a very transient type of home that the system uses for temporary housing. Um, it was a really awful demise of his life through various types of drugs and violent acts, and it was right next door to me. I see this every single day, and it makes me so much more passionate about wanting to help them. But I knew at the time I couldn't have helped them unless I helped myself, right? And so now that it feels like both of us are in this amazing open-hearted space to start welcoming and bringing in the human beings who need this the most. Like, I get
Hmm.
really passionate about this, and with people who have experienced it, firsthand that it's not a make a quick decision and it's done. Like, and I know a lot of people out there who have family members who are struggling on a daily basis with this. And
Yeah, me too.
we need one of these. We need one of you on every street corner, just next to all of the yoga studios and all of the yummy support. Like, I'm envisioning when people come to your recovery oasis, they're not just there to reintroduce themselves into society. They're still figuring out their own stuff, and
Hmm.
working with your hands in that way, in oh it's
It's so healing. I know, it
it's
gives me
so
chills.
healing, so healing. And so we just have a few more minutes left here today, but I wanted to bring up um you're doing an amazing retreat in Mexico in October. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then how people can find you?
Yes, and before I do, I just wanted to say really quick that phase 3 is exactly what you're talking about. It's linking arms with other studios, organizations, teachers, therapists, Ayurvedic practitioners to do a similar program, and really spread this out because it's so needed. I mean, um, I have a friend whose son I watched grow up from 2 years old. I met him, and now he's 24, and this is his third time now through rehab because he's addicted to fentanyl. So, it's real, it's close. I'm sure that when you look outside or you look in your friend circle, anyone who reaches out 6 degrees of separation knows someone who is dealing with someone who's either addicted or or a family member is. So
Or trying to
yeah, so
maintain that sobriety. Hmm.
exactly. So, we can all help each other in that way. And I really feel that that way is coming back to community and simplicity, the holistic ways, and really reestablishing that tribe and coming back to ritual, which is one of the reasons why I love Mexico so much, is because there's so many elders here who can teach us rituals and how to work with medicine and work with ourselves and heal on a
Hmm.
really deep level. So I'm so grateful because I feel like this is the perfect space for it. And the yoga retreat that is coming up in October, it's called Ayurveda and Aging Yoga Retreat. And I'm co-teaching that with Ayurvedic practitioner and Vedic scholar Peter Malakoff, who's lived in India for 10 years from, I think, 2008 to 2018. And I had the blessing of meeting him here in Mexico in Ajijic, which is where I am now, just on Lake Chapala, just south of Guadalajara. And he lives here now. And he's 71 years old. And he moved to India, from India to Mexico with his partner to retire here. And he is a fountain of knowledge. He's a storyteller. He's originally from New York, and he's Jewish, and I just relate to him so well. He tells the best stories, and we just laugh so much, and he's become like a big brother to me. And so he and I complement each other so well, because since he is so full of the knowledge, he's like the Vaidya, the teacher, the one who is established in all the teachings. And I'm like the Bishak. So I'm the one that's doing the hands-on therapies. So this retreat is a really unique and rare opportunity to experience Ayurveda, not only on an intellectual level, but also in an experiential way. Because when people pay for their retreat in full, we send them a 16-page Ayurvedic intake health form.
Hmm.
And we invite people to sit and really answer those questions in the most depth that they can, because we're trying to get an idea of how people are living their daily life. Like, what are you
Yes.
eating for breakfast? What are you eating for dinner? When are you eating that? How do you feel before and after? And I mean, it is so detailed. So we invite people to take some time with it, at least a week. And then they're going to send that back to us ahead of time so that we can basically have an idea of what we're going to give them for their program. And then we're going to print up a booklet for them with their specific diet and lifestyle protocols. Then when they come to the retreat in person, Peter is going to meet with each of the guests individually, because there are things that you can't see just from a piece of paper, or
Right.
having even a Zoom meeting or something like that. Like, you want to take a pulse reading. You want to see people's tongue. You want to see how they walk in and their gait and how they carry themselves and what their
Yes.
demeanors are, their expressions. How This is what I mean by the Mexican speakers.
Oh,
They're
yeah, we
selling
can't
gas
even
right
hear
now.
it. That's so funny.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, good. I'm glad. Because it's really loud. Okay, so then, because we're gonna know ahead of time, or know what people's needs are, then
Yeah,
I'm gonna know which treatments to give them. And there's a
exactly.
traditional Ayurvedic spa on site. It's in a private beach community, so it's gated and secured, because I know some people hear things about Mexico, but I want people to know that don't listen to the media when it comes to Mexico. I mean, yes, of course, bad things happen everywhere,
Right.
but this is a really loving country full of people that are totally willing to help you out, even if they don't know you at any time of day. It's amazing. I really love it here. And then we're going to teach people dinacharya practices. We're going to teach people, there's not going to be any meat, fish, chicken, or alcohol, no caffeine. So, we're going to have we're going to send people a protocol so that people can, um, start to detox a little bit
At
and
home.
eliminate some of those things before. So,
Good.
yeah, and then we're right on the ocean, and most of the rooms are ocean front. So it's such a
Ah,
blessing to be able to go to sleep and wake up to the sound of the ocean. And if people are afraid to swim in the ocean, then there's an on-site pool as well.
And so
So
how
we have
can we find you? How can people find you and read more, or at least contact you?
you can find me from my website, which is my name, Karuna DiLibero, which is spelled Karuna, and my last name is spelled DILIB as in boy, ERO.com. And then it's just / retreats. Or you can just go
That'll
to .com and just look under my yoga tab.
Okay.
Yeah,
That'll be in
under
my show
retreats.
notes too. So,
Okay.
wow. And that's October 14th through the 21st of this year.
Yeah.
So coming up
Yes.
fast.
Coming up really fast. I'm really looking forward to getting back to the beach.
Oh, Karuna. I cannot, um, whenever I have these interviews and conversations with people, especially ones that I've known but I haven't spoken with in a while, I really have no idea where it's going to go. And you've kind of blown me out of the water a little bit today, with the parallel path, and I'm just so excited for you. I am so
Thank
excited for
you.
you.
Thank you. Me
Yes.
too. I'm really excited to see what unfolds because, I mean, I feel like I'm just one match starting the spark, and it's going to start this huge spreading of that healing flame, that I mean, so many people will get involved and who knows what direction it will take. So I'm really excited to see how it all unfolds. As we know, life is a mystery, and we are so blessed to be a witness to it all.
We are, and the abundance is around every corner, and the possibilities
Mm-hmm.
I know are just it's just limitless.
Mm-hmm.
What's possible. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
um, oh, bless you so much for all the work that you're
Oh,
doing and are going to
thank you
be
so much.
bringing more of to this planet.
Thank
From
you.
one flashlight to another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to talking to you more.
Yes, yes. Oh, I'll definitely be having you back, and we may, who knows, maybe we'll do a live podcast next time I see you.
Oh, fun. Okay, I'm
All
up
right.
for it. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
everyone for
Karuna.
listening.
Yes.
Namaste.
Namaste, Karuna.
Many blessings.